Alright, whatever. I'm done. Now was actually the part where I would give up. Hello. After that loss, I know that if I went to bed, I wouldn't be able to sleep, knowing that this game beat me like that. Knowing that it put me straight into the cuck chair as it just started fucking going to town on my wife. I'm back once more at the very same day to set the record straight. Once again, not really much to say. The strat I employed before worked well enough, so I would just continue doing that. Alright, so it seems like it favors heads so far in the seed, and I immediately jinxed myself by saying that. Okay. Alright, it can't be tails 4 times in a row. You actually are just shitting on my nutsack. That is unbelievable. We got human fat oaf obtained. Now it was time to go and finish every one of the fights up again. If it's that simple, then why did I decide to show the cave mother in this footage, and why am I talking about it? Well, what the fuck shit? Fuck off! Looks like we were in for a long walk, boys. Woohoo! AFK for Chromauler. Turns out going straight for his torso works better than going for the arm with the club, since it means he has less of a chance to use Peck, which is his most problematic attack by far, as it just straight up insta-kills. Unfortunately, this would mark the end for Fat Oaf.
He was special.
Also, I somehow forgot to mention, I'm re-recording this later, I got scroll of fencing here, which gives fast attack. This was pretty integral to the rest of the run, and that's all. Okay, thank you. Bye. This time, Valtiel would go down easily. 1993 damage, holy shit. And then, with the goated-ass skeleton that just randomly hits a headshot on the Black Witch, we were finally back, progress-wise, to the time the game crashed, and other than that insane amount of wasted time it took moving around due to my missing leg, we were chilling. Next up was the Skin Granny, another one of the main bosses. I could have also gone and fought the Tormented one, but I didn't remember how to get to his area, and I was too lazy to find out right now. So I just went for Skin Granny, where you gotta sleep and wake up in this dream. Then you go through all the characters' memories, even though you can only play as one of them in hard mode. And then it was time for Skin Granny. Fast attack was making these fights a hell of a lot easier, since I just had a bonus turn constantly. Absolutely insane skill. I started out by poisoning her and then just going to town on her torso, and ignoring the limbs for now. Unfortunately, going for the limbs might have actually been the better play, as she targeted and he was no more.
He was special.
Thankfully, Human would survive with 1 HP, like a Chad. Now, I was quite scared for the Tormented one, so what do you think I did? I walked my ass all the way back to the puzzle to revive one of the ghouls there. Get out, obtained. Now it was time for the Tormented one. Oh yeah, right. Alright, we were back. One issue I found at this point was I was running incredibly low on torches, and so in order for me to not look like this after throwing away my run, I would try and play as much of the game in the dark until I found some torches. Husk. Sacrifice. Now this guy I was scared for. Not only because his fight was quite unfamiliar to me, as I had not played this game in a while, but also because I had heard that this fight was one of the toughest in Ragnvaldr's ending. First phase, no problem. It is the second phase where I had some issues. Now, I thought that explosive vials would work well for this fight, since you're meant to hit the 2 outer wheels to be able to damage the main one. But these did too little damage to jam them, and kept on missing. And even after I figured that out, my total dumbass just still couldn't figure out that I had to attack both of the outer wheels first to be able to attack Valtiel himself. I thought it was just one of them that you had to jam. This was not looking good.
What? You just miss every time! Okay, now it works. What? Please go down. Oh my god, thank you. Oh my god.
Unfortunately, my skeleton and ghoul friends were forever lost.
He was special.
I was going to avenge them by getting this ending. I did actually want to get more party members, but I thought I had already used them all, when in fact there was an extra skeleton and ghoul I could have found. Anyway, White Angel, just Black Orb his art. Next up, Nameless Figurine. While not technically required for this ending, the only way to skip him was to use an empty scroll to get the King Passage key, which I didn't have, so Blood Golem it was.
Just die, bro. Thank you, fucking Christ.
And now, Francois. Here's the thing, I had to be really careful getting to him. Stepping on this was instant death, and I was moving slow as shit with one leg. Now, remember, Francois was just a walking Joe Biden, and so he went down easily. Now, with Francois defeated, there were only 2 more enemies left. I mean, technically 3, but one of them you don't even have to fight, you just cut this organ and it dies. But anyway, the end was just in sight.
So, I'm gonna... Oh my god.
Now, it was time for the old guardian. To get to him, I had to grab the key from present Mahavre, and so I went and did just that.
Answer no matter what.
The big issue now was, at this point I had completely run out of torches, so I was basically just playing blind until I found my next torch. This was ass, but by looking at a guide and mimicking the same movements, I found one, and we were in the clear once again. Now, this guy, the old guardian, was basically my final fight. Iron Shakespeare, I had already beaten. He was no challenge. This guy was the only thing standing between me and victory. So, let's see it.
Tom Holland, what the fuck, man? I don't want to talk your
2 hours and 40 minutes. That was the time I had spent on this one run alone, and it was gone, just like that, before I even had the chance to do a second move, all because of stunlock mechanics. So, after being deeply penetrated last time, I came back the very next day.
Outlander, baby.
This time, I was gonna employ the use of Super Wind. At this point, I had pushed through the anger phase, and was more so enjoying my time in a masochistic type of way.
Might as well just restart at that point, or whatever, man.
I had also figured out that, surprisingly, going in through the main entrance was probably the better option. Sure, it gets the hounds on you.
Why didn't the dogs come in?
Sometimes. But they're not too hard to avoid, and you can loot the bookshelves much faster, which pretty much guarantees if the run will be good for you or not. A lot more so than looting the weapons and armor, which is more so of a good bonus to have rather than a necessity. So, after the general grinding done at the start of every run,
Thank you.
it was time once again for the cave mother.
And this motherfucking monkey got the audacity.
And of course, she just had to chop off my goddamn limb again. Thankfully though, this time she went for the arm, which is fine, it just means I have a bit less defense, but I can run, which is the important part. Now, this time, since I didn't find any empty scrolls, I was just gonna go balls out, and pray for good luck with the Chromauler. I mean, I had the iron mask on, so he couldn't blind me or kill me with Peck, so as long as I hit enough crits, I would be fine. Did I not put the iron mask on? I did, in fact, put the iron mask on. However, as it turns out, the iron mask does not protect against Peck, as I had originally thought, only against Flock of Crows. And then, on the next attempt, the luck on the books wasn't too good, so I thought, let's go for it! So lucky. Like, what is it wrong with this? This game is actual ass. This game is... Oh! Alright, so here, we're all about saving you that time. So, nothing really happened for the next half an hour or so. But now, it was time for the first big fight. The Chromauer. Solo, because I found no empty scrolls. But this time, I had an ace up my sleeve. The Waigetsu Amulet. With this and the Purified Eastern Sword, my crit chance was 94%. If I was lucky, I could manage to kill him in just 2 turns. However, he just refused to spawn, so...
Mauler, Chromauler. We're gonna attract him. Oh look, there he is. There he is, he's right there. Look at him, he just spawned in. Oh look, he's coming down now. Whoop, 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 whoop. Fight. Da da da. And make him like really small. So we have the power to do this. Make him like really small, and then Ragnvalder can just go like just straight up like just start stomping on him, right? And boom, he's not even an issue.
Can this fucking guy spawn? He did eventually show up, but as expected, this didn't go exactly as planned. If you do peck, I'm gonna fucking just bomb. My new strat this time, because I was so sick of wasting 30 minutes of my time just to get poor luck on books and die, was to just rush straight in through the front and go to the bookshelves, loot, and hope I get some decent stuff. If not, I would restart. I just killed him. Oh yeah, the fucking dead I'm just actually, like... Heads. Okay, we got it. Gonna give me something good? No, hurting. Yeah, give me the... If there was a sniper posted outside my house, and he just, like, shined a laser through my window, and then just, like, shot me with, like, a big bullet, like a really big one, like, guaranteed, like, instant death, I wouldn't even be mad, because it means I would have to, like, not play this game. After enough brute forcing, I finally managed to get an actual good start to the run. Now, after 2 hours, I finally got Necromancy, Gas Tweaker, Crash Out, Cave Mother dead, Gas Station Tweaker lost his arm, but you only need 1 arm to smoke crack. Salmono dead. Now, this time around, on this seed, something unexpected happened. Oh, what the fuck? Cave Dweller Massacre. That's a rare event. So, I think you know what that means. Let's test my luck in something else. This joke took up all the money in my bank account, please. Now, before Chrome Mauler, I needed another meat shield. Big guy bye. Helps out just like that. My god, dude. No. Okay, missed. In 1 turn! Get fucked. Holy. Was this the run? Would I actually make it this time around? So, I got the key I needed from the old Guardian fight. What's that? You want to know if I got anything good from the scrolls here? My luck would be turned around here, as I got pretty much the main thing I was still looking for. Okay. Forgotten memories password. What? That's insane. I got a fast attack. That's the main one that I wanted. Now it was time for a big brain guy. Fast attack, poison sword, dead. Black Witch, dead. You remember how the old Guardian stun-locked me with his boulders? By getting the Gaunt Knight armor, the helmet from that actually prevents stun status effect. Thankfully, me and my skeletons managed to get him to drop the weapons, and he went down quite easily. Now, let us go once more to the Tormented One. Come on now. That's disrespectful to say that. This motherfucker tried to get an S ending, and your bum ass says it's his first time. This time, the fight against the Tormented One went very well, and I left this battle with all of my party members still intact. Alright, let's just speed this up, okay? None of the previous guys I already beat were an issue at all. White Angel, dead. Granny, dead. But she did kill Big Guy Bye.
He was special.
Now, with the death of our bisexual big guy, we had but one very dangerous guy to face. It was time for a rematch. This time, I used fast attack. All I had to do was just go for the torso before he did enough damage to kill me. Nice. Nice. We win. We fucking win. We win! We win! Francois was as easy as you would expect. I even figured out that the coin flip he doesn't actually even kill you if you miss, so I was just making a big deal out of nothing. And now, the absolute final battle, Iron Shakespeare. This dastardly foe would be, okay, he's dead. Then we grabbed the butterfly soul and headed out. What? Huh? Excuse me? I quickly figured out, thankfully, that the reason for this was just because, despite what the game was telling me, I never actually checked on the guard, so I went to do that real quick, and finally, we were free. Let's go! We did it. We fucking did it. Oh my god, finally. So, to summarize real quick for this final ending, Ragnvaldr, being the absolute beast that he is, kills every monster in the dungeons, and proceeds to dedicate his life to hunting down every monster he can find to stop them from corrupting the world. Absolute GOAT. So, real quick, how long did this endeavor of every ending take me? 26 hours. Which is a bit longer than Fear and Hunger 2 took me. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Farewell and good night.
Hello? Hello?
If you're a fan of horror, you're probably familiar with the Blair Witch Project. For those of you who don't know, it was a horror film disguised as a documentary about 3 college students who went missing while trying to make a movie, leaving behind only the footage that they had shot. Through the use of brilliant marketing and word of mouth, audiences became convinced that the movie, which was presented as the remaining footage of the doomed film crew, was actually a true story, and that the characters they were watching were real people who were still missing. Today, the Blair Witch Project is a known work of fiction, and a very special one at that. It is not just remembered for its clever scares or compelling narrative, but for its experimental, almost insane approach to storytelling. It's often cited as the first found footage film, a genre that is often ridiculed for being the cheapest and hokiest of all horror media. And even accounting for the few successful found footage films out there, it is also commonly remarked that there will never be another one as good as the Blair Witch Project, because that was a trick that can only be played once. Audiences in 1999 had never seen anything like it, and that made it scary as hell. But once they knew it wasn't real, the illusion was broken forever. The reason I'm telling you about this is because the game I'm covering today is the Blair Witch Project of horror games. It was the first to do something insane, experimental, and genius. Something that can never be done again. It is a game that had its 15 minutes of fame, but was never fully credited for its brilliance. It is a game that is shrouded in controversy, and not without good reason. It is a game so intense, so scary, so hostile, that the only reason I haven't covered it already is that for the past 3 years, I've been too afraid to play it. Politely, I advise viewer discretion. This game is not for the faint of heart. But to those among you who would like to know this bizarre, terrifying, unparalleled story, I bid you welcome to the game. Elephant in the room, this is a video about Welcome to the Game 2. Welcome to the Game 1 does exist. It is a similar game, but I think many will agree with me in saying that the sequel is superior in nearly every way. On top of that, this is the kind of sequel where you don't need to know anything about the original. And I meant what I said before, by the way. This video, and more specifically this game, is not for the faint of heart. Now at the finish line, having devoted the past several months of my life to understanding this game, I can say with utmost certainty that it is the single most terrifying experience a game has ever given me. If you want my 1-2 punch thesis for this video, here it is. This game is a groundbreaking achievement in horror, but no one will give it credit because of some ethical qualms attached to the IP. Yes, this game is controversial. Some might say exceedingly so. Since its release 6 years ago, it has been the subject of many controversies, all of which I plan to address in full context before the end of this video. No doubt a lot of you out there already know what I'm talking about, and for those of you who don't, I can't decide if I envy or lament your ability to hear this story for the first time. It's probably better that I just show you. Might as well begin by hitting New Game. Where she claims to have been. Am I supposed to know these Wi-Fi passwords? Whatever. There's still a package waiting for us, and I'd better go and grab it. Get the flashlight. Check the peephole. Oh, wait. This ought to stop Johnny Law from putting the trace on us. I hope. On my second trip to the alley, I ran inside that little door and held it shut right away, listening for footsteps after the drone had delivered its package. A minute passed, and there was nothing. Maybe it's safe. Maybe I can just get the package and go. Okay, I think we're good. Up the stairs, down the hall, into my dojo. Lock the door. There. Now, what exactly is this thing that Adam sent us? According to the Shadow Market, the place on our desktop where we can purchase even more hardware upgrades, this is a remote VPN. In real life, I believe their purpose is to protect your identity online and give YouTubers an ad read. Here, in this game, it seems they're used to mine Bitcoin. Or DOScoin, as the game calls it. All you do is install them somewhere with good connection, and over time they will generate a pretty penny. Okay, like out in the hallway. Oh yeah, look, you can just slap it down anywhere. Red locations yield poor returns. Yellow locations seem better. Maybe yellow locations are the best. Pop that down, head back in, lock the door, and look at that. It seems that with the use of this device, we are generating 4.75 DOScoin every 8 minutes or so. That's not especially efficient, I don't think, but this is a long game. It's bound to add up over time. So, we've installed our VPN, the money's trickling in, and now there's nothing left to do but the objective. As much as I don't want to, it's time that we open the browser and have a look at the big bad Deep Wiki. Simultaneously, the Deep Wiki is not as bad and also worse than I remember. It's not as bad in the sense that there's only like 25 websites on it. Finding 8 keys among them should be a breeze. However, it's worse than I remember in that the descriptions of the websites alone are enough to make my skin crawl. I mean, I have to start somewhere. Which site sounds the least horrible? Thanks for visiting, maybe? Well, you're welcome, I guess. Site looks pretty small. There's no text anywhere. Nothing in the source viewer. Oh, the teddy bear is a link. Where is this taking me? Don't talk to me that way, Chantal. Huh. Well, there's no keys in plain sight, none in the source code. Oh. Are you for real? Each one of these blue squares is a link, too. Okay, where do they go to? Link 1 takes me to the homepage. Link 2 takes me to the homepage. Let me guess. Link 3 is going to take me back to the homepage? Oh. No, that's not the homepage. If you want to have good posture, and everyone does, here are some helpful posture questions to ask yourself. Do I sit tall with feet flat on the floor? Do I sit with my buttocks against the lower back of my chair? Fuck, who made this site? My kindergarten teacher? No keys, no links, no nothing. Okay, back to the Chantal page. There is one link to check out. Choose your shrimp wise. Are you fucking serious? All 12 of the shrimp are links. Oh, what the fuck is this site? Okay, Shrimp 1 takes me to the homepage. Shrimp 2 takes me to the homepage. I'll speed things up for you real quick. Shrimps 1 through 10 all took me back to the homepage, and Shrimp 12 did as well. But something weird happened with Shrimp 11. In an unamused typeface, the game recommends you should leave. This is the only link I haven't clicked yet. We're at the very bottom of the rabbit hole. If a key is hiding on this website, it must be here. The second site I visited was titled Drone Spy. It's some dude who's a drone hobbyist, so you already know he's a sex offender, who spies on women with a drone and sells the videos to other perverts on the deep web. His site only had 3 pages on it, but it did have a fair shake of text to it. This is a complication, because not every link in this game advertises itself as clearly as a wall of shrimp. Sometimes a page, or even a key, can be embedded behind a single word plucked out of a paragraph. And so, the standard procedure for searching a site like this is to drag the cursor over every line of text until you can say with certainty that there are no hidden links. This especially sucks because it's kinda difficult to examine every word without also reading them. And more often than not, the things you read are absolutely putrid. By the 3rd page of Drone Spy, the host drops a nonchalant mention that most of these videos are of girls from his school. The site is run by a teenage boy. Fucking barf, dude. The 3rd site, though grave in nature, was fortunately less disturbing. Cleaning Services is a blog about the most effective ways to hide a human body. As far as I know, it could be hosted by a serial killer or one of those girly channels who talks true crime while doing her makeup. The site goes into all the gory details, including the most effective methods of dismemberment, components needed for acid disposal, and even a fascinating recommendation for how to bury a body and get away with it. According to this guy, you're supposed to dig a really deep hole, stuff the victim's remains in it, cover them under a few feet of dirt, and then bury a dead animal on top of them. This way, when the searchers find the disturbed ground where you hid the corpse, they begin digging and quickly find a dead dog, and thus assume it must be a pet's grave. And then they cover it back up and abandon the search. This is apparently a tried and true method that many murderers have used to evade justice. How fascinating is that? Sorry, lost my composure there for a moment. No keys here, no keys there, done and dusted. After wrapping this 3rd site, I disconnected my PC from the internet so that law enforcement would lose their trace on me. Then I just sort of got up and paced around the room. The door was still locked, the hallway was still clear, and my VPN was slowly making money. This boring cooldown phase encouraged me to become more familiar with my surroundings, and in so doing, I learned that the player can hide in both the closet and the bathroom shower. When in hiding, a little green microphone appears. The game is listening to me. Thereafter, I learned that you can actually adjust all the lights in the apartment and even play the game in sheer darkness if you wanted to. Why on earth you would do such a thing, I have no idea. Then, from even more digging around, I learned that you can actually pick up and relocate the Wi-Fi router, and that doing so gives you access to a whole new slew of networks, including some more without password protection. This way, I was able to blow off the rest of the cooldown time and resume my search on another stranger's internet. Something I've come to recognize, and really appreciate about this game, is that not every site is morbid or explicit. Some of them are just confusing, or even a little silly. Here's a site called Fortune Cookie. This is the whole site. And no, there is no option to pick another fortune cookie. Just below it on the wiki, I found a site called Forgive Me. It's a site with only 2 pages where you can confess your sins and then anonymously shoot them out into the ether. You can actually read the confessions submitted by others, too. A lot of them are pretty tame, others downright silly. Every now and then you get a spicy one, but holy shit! Okay, enough of that site. On the other side of the coin, there are some sites that might appear silly, but are really anything but. Enter the site titled We Rock. We Rock purports to be a message board for rock enthusiasts, or collectors, or what have you. In theory, it's a perfectly believable site, just dudes collecting rocks on the deep web. But a closer inspection raises an eyebrow. The site proudly boasts on its front page, "We have many names," before going on to list a series, including andesite, diatomite, and pseudo-tacholite. They then go on to say, "Do not try to contact us. We are minerals and cannot write." I think I was wrong, actually. This site's legit. It's just a bunch of nutters on the deep web pretending to be robots. Oh, fuck. Oh, okay, what's happening? Oh, we're getting hacked. This is a thing that can happen from time to time when you're browsing sites. The game will randomly hit you with a little timed puzzle. Too slow, and you get hacked. When that happens, you can lose DOS coin, you can lose your notes, and you can even get a virus. But if you solve the puzzle correctly, your data is safe. Better yet, I think there's a way you can actually make money off of these, but I don't quite remember how. Oh, but it seems so far I've only figured out how to lose money from them. Fuck me, I guess. The hacker didn't steal my notes, lucky for me since they've been just so useful, but he did take a little chunk out of my DOS coin wallet, a thing I'd completely forgotten about. For the first time since I had placed the VPN, my eyes wandered to the top left of the screen, where I had discovered I had actually been making some decent money. I opened the hardware market to see what sort of trinkets and baubles 30 DOS coin would buy me, but was dismayed to find that everything I wanted was still out of reach. I could, however, afford a second VPN, which was probably a smart investment, seeing as it would theoretically double my income. I placed an order, the site gave me an ETA, and somewhere on the other side of the city, another drone hobbyist was up to no good. While I waited on that delivery, I went back to the Deep Wiki and began deciding which website I would visit next. Wouldn't you know it, I was running out of the benign-sounding sites, leaving only places that I did not want to go. Eventually, I was torn between Thanatos and Fuck You, so I ultimately went with the one that sounded a little less threatening. Oh no, it's got a spooky-ass soundtrack. Hey, that's a key! That's a fucking key right there. Oh shit, I forgot I was even looking for those MFs. Oh. No power. So we're playing fucking COD Zombies now. Well, I remember there being a maintenance door at the end of the hall. Maybe the breaker tripped. Now I just need to find some fucking Juggernog and Pack-a-Punch and— oh, you fucker! Fucking Juggernog and Pack-a-Punch and— oh, you fucker! It seems that we have now made contact with yet another threat. The Noir. They are a cult. A freaky-ass deep web cult. They're the ones who took Amelia, and probably all the local kidnappings, and now it looks like we are their newest target. Approach them head-on, and we're dead. Try to flee, and it's the same thing. Really, once the Noir want you, you're completely fucked. But there is a way to prolong your fate. Apparently, and this comes from the document that Adam sent us, if you encounter a Noir operative, you're supposed to turn your back to them and count to 30. By the time you finish, they're supposed to have disappeared. Make no mistake, they'll be back. But this method is all we've got. These sickos prefer to play with their food. 27, 28, 29, 30. Seems to have done the trick. Now then, back to some— are you By the time I had repelled the hack, the site called Thanatos would no longer load. At the beginning of the game, Adam mentioned something about websites that are only available at certain times. I wasn't really paying attention to him, to be honest, but I can only assume that's what this is. We know there's a key here, but it can't currently be accessed. Guess we'll have to—
items I could for the final fight. But my blackjack hand wasn't done yet. I hit and was given a new card. Metaphorically, of course, as the card that hit was actually just the idea of me using my brain. I remembered from the other time I played how someone in chat had mentioned that dying to needles actually resets my phobia. I assume this to be a simple story of acceptance. Once one person's mind is broken, they orgasm and have found new joy in life. Their fears broken through with a newfound purpose. No longer fearing the same. What the fuck am I even talking about? Getting rid of my panophobia means I will now take 50% less damage from every enemy, as well as having a 50% buff to my evasion rate. This was huge, as it meant bob and weave would actually do something now. Before the fight, I decided to increase my mind to full for this fight. Mine goes down super fast, and I didn't want to waste any of the few mind restoring items I had. I went back to the church and faced the Rancid Circle. Turns out the Red Arc was a lot better than I had given it credit for, since I could literally just stun both arms and he would be completely useless, except for his coin flip attack. Thankfully, however, I had applied the evasion buff on myself through bob and weave, and I managed to dodge it anyway, despite failing the coin flip. And with that, the arm of the Rancid Circle was gone, and I had won. I explored the surrounding area. The Blue Door house was now available to me, which had the only usable hexen in the game now. This would be my home. I did not wish to save yet, however. I didn't think it would be worth saving without getting the meat grinder, since that would be an extra 20-minute trek each time, even if I did manage to luckily find a small things amulet from one of the trash cans. So, after another AFK session at the bar to bring my mind up, as well as me forgetting to take this text off the screen, even despite someone in chat attempting to tell me,
Hey, I'm already done waiting for mine. I'm making progress now.
I had made it back to the bunkers, and I had obtained the bench grinder and the scrap metal I was looking for. All seemed good. Now all I had to do was get back to the blue house and save. Well, at least I knew a clear plan for next time, and now we arrive at quite possibly the saddest stream of all.
Fuck's sake!
This time, I decided that I would go and grab the meat grinder first, and save dying to needles for later on in the run, as I really did not wish to constantly keep track of my mind, since if it went to 0, I would get panophobia again, and would have no way to fix it this time. I did decide to still idle in the bar though before getting the meat grinder, just so I could have the chance to use Red Arc against some of the annoying enemies. I did think of an idea to get around this boring part of idling for 5 minutes. Fuck! It was clear this challenge was having some sort of effects on me.
Whoa! Whoa!
I did find that I was a bit short on cash for the small things amulet, but using my skills of being a homeless man, I scoured some trash to find the remaining money.
Oh, look, it's gonna be in that trash can. Rotten meat! Oh! Yo!
With 2 small things amulets, I could once again escape from every encounter using the battle menu. Since this is programmed in the default way for RPG Maker, what this means is that it compares your agility to the enemy's agility to determine the chance of you escaping. If you have at least double the enemy's agility, this would be a 100% chance. Before my escape from the tunnels, I had one more dilemma to solve.
Okay. Unfair bias, but it's been heads 3 times in a row. So even though it's still technically a 50-50 chance, the chance of it landing on heads again, right, 4 times in a row, that's pretty low. Okay.
After a close call with the mob cornering me, I managed to escape through pretty much complete dumb luck. And then I went back to the sewers to finally kill all of the Moonscorch there for free heads, and without doing so having the potential to put me at 10 HP. And then it was back to some AFK farming, where I once again took some amusement on the side, and my retardation peeked out into the outside world even further.
Hell yeah. What am I doing? What the fuck am I doing? What even?
And now we were back at the Rancid Circle, which with the combination of Red Arc and Meat Grinder went down super easily. Next order of business, I needed more heads for skills, so I went back to the seaside to slaughter everyone there yet again. Everything was going smoothly until on my trek back...
Oh, what?
Our good friend, Caligura. He comes out of the sewers once you run past it enough times. Fortunately for me, I had the meat grinder and Red Arc on my side. I could stun his body to stop him from performing the poison attack he does. He only had 1 attack that would be able to hit me now, and Perfect Guard would reduce the damage of this even further.
What? Even with guard he kills me?
Turns out, however, he is exceptional at breaking through guards, as him doing the attack once did a whole 117 damage even with guarding, and just like that, an hour of progress was lost. If I couldn't go back through the sewers, I would have to go through the main entrance to the city. The village area wasn't a problem. There was a death mask, sure, but he could be pretty much permanently disabled with a bear trap, and the vial would die very easily to my meat grinder. It was the entrance on the city side that was the issue, as I had led a death mask, a warden, and 2 bellends right to the entrance, so anytime I went in, I was practically guaranteed to have my anal hole explored. So my new strat was to simply lead them away from the entrance before getting the meat grinder. This would let me move around them far easier in the future, and thus allow for this path to actually be possible. This task seems easier written than it actually is to do practically, because constantly I would get into fights with the enemies here, and since I still didn't have the second small things amulet at this point, any one of those times I could fail to escape and that life would be over. Now, I really wish I had more to say about this stream since it was on the longer side out of all of the ones that I did, but really that's where it ended. I tried this strategy for another hour and a half, but ended up failing in some way, whether it was due to me being cursed with misfortune or trapping myself with the mob. Something always got in my way.
Should work, hopefully. You motherfucker! Like there's that. It doesn't even look like there's a fucking wall yet. Oh my god.
So much to do still.
Fuck off! Stop fucking moving in that direction, you piece of shit! Oh, I thought I. Oh my god, nice. Yes! Yes! That's what I've been waiting for.
And with that, I had made 0 real progress this stream, though I suppose I had a bit of a better idea on what I should do next. The next stream started with misfortune.
Yo, get this shit out. Get this out. What did that just do? Oh my fucking... I am pissed! Why is this going below?
Thankfully, my luck in the game would change for the better. I may have died a few times at the start, though this did not discourage me. If anything, it only made me more motivated, because I knew that I was dying mainly to being unlucky, rather than not having a clear strategy. Speaking of, I made a few changes to my strats. I would still go get the meat grinder and kill the rancid Sergal. However, on the way, I would also pick up this leechmongering, as someone in chat had recommended it to me, as it heals for each hit, and since the meat grinder hits 3 times, this was an insane amount of healing each turn. I also started shooting some bellends as they had a chance to drop 10 shillings upon death, which would help me make significant progress towards obtaining another small things amulet. I got into a fight with one of the so jobs. However, as I said,
there's no way I die to this.
No way I die to this. Way I die to this.
Oh wait, no. Oh shit. Oh.
Next run, we had to get those 10 shillings. And then we had a very unfortunate mistake occur.
Oh fuck! I activated the mob. Shit. I forgot they spawned there. Fuck. Shit. No.
And still, no 10 shillings.
Lucky coin, fuck.
I did then, however, make it to the tunnels. I then had someone in chat tell me that they in fact had enough mind healing items, even in Maso mode, to avoid getting panophobia for the majority of the game. Surely this couldn't be true though, right? No way. Nah. And then, as usual, the mob would end this run as I was too much of a broke boy to get the small things amulet. And then I cornered myself. But thankfully, my woes were answered.
Let's go! Okay.
And I had found enough other money for that second small things amulet. I got everything I needed, but before I returned, there were some more heads from the Moon Scorched, where someone gave me some soundly advice.
Ignore 2 or 3 times. No, it's not 2 or 3 times. It is not 2 or 3 times.
Thankfully, this would not be the run ender, and I would continue forward uncalm. Until I hath made it to the village, where I would get the most unexpected greeting yet.
Oh, I never trapped the death mask here. What the fuck, dude? He fucking can't. Dude, how fast can he run? Jesus.
Despite his ferocious speed, he was really no match. And then more farming at the seaside. Woohoo! I had a whole 20 heads to show for it. Now, before the Sergal fights, we had to AFK for even more. So you know what that means.
This guy? Oh my god!
And then it was once again finally time for me to face this guy in a duel. A duel for the ages. The victor of which would decide... Yeah, he was pretty easy. Now, you might think to be safe, I would go and save straight away, but I was feeling frisky, so I decided to save myself some time. I would farm mind at Perheval Bop and die to needles. Needle whip! Hell yeah. In order to be able to reset my panophobia. While waiting for mind this time, I figured I should practice some of my drawing skills. I almost drew like a windmill there. Okay, that looks more like a sideways ceiling fan. It's like this is like using an Etch-a-Sketch. It looks like a whale behind a football net. Okay, now we got like a little sailboat. Look at that. That was almost a rabbit. Okay, that's almost something crazy. I don't even... what am I drawing? I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I do not have that kind of money. After getting rid of my phobia, I had made my way back to the house where I finally saved. Progress has been made. Now I would use this new save to test out the true power which I held now. And let me tell you, it was far greater than I had imagined. And I can reach wondering it's still out. Get full HP. Fucking overpowered, dude. And you know, I was pretty overpowered, except for on the Bellins, those guys were still pretty hard. This is where I would end the stream this time, but now I knew what I had to do the next time. Next stream, I was determined to make this the final stream. The one where I would finally face Rare and all of the Moon-Scorched contestants. I decided to start this out with killing the mob again. For no real reason, honestly, I just didn't like them. I would be humbled, unfortunately, as Guard was my savior. I was not so powerful that I could ignore that just yet. I had to stay focused, so I went and killed Pocket Cat, no problem. And then the mechanical dance, which was equally as easy, though I did take quite a bit of damage. Then the final enemy in the museum, Judgment, which was so easy, I actually got all my HP back. I then got a few more skills, the two most important being Poison Tip for free extra damage at the hefty cost of 5 mind, and Mischief of Rats, which doesn't do too much damage, but hits every body part and stuns them, so you could literally just use this and enemies just couldn't do shit. And then it was a fight with the mob, because fuck those guys. Playing it slightly safer this time, I came out 3 heads richer and without much damage taken. More mind farming where I attempted to draw something coherent this time, but lacked the artistic skill. Now we went to see our old friend at the orphanage, the Weeping Scope, who was being rather loud. Yo, Weeping Scope. Why does it sound like there's 3 of them? Yeah, no big deal at all. Then I would run into an unfortunate issue. The Rare timer. Bro! Already? What the fuck is with this game? Oh, thank God. Infinite sprint bug. Oh my God. That just saved me. That just saved me, I think. That was so close! Oh my God! Oh! Now it was time to face Dysmorphia, probably the second most threatening Moon-Scorched fight, as she was able to dish out insane damage with hurting. Thankfully, however, Mischief of Rats would stop her from doing pretty much anything of actual value, and thus she died incredibly easily. Next up, the Mastermind. Now this guy was a huge threat. He could... Yeah, I already beat him in a way worse state. He was easy as fuck. Now, do you remember what I had said before about people ignoring another's actions so long as kindness is shown to them personally? Well, we're about to change that, as I had to go back and kill the mayor. I was also quite scared of this fight, as he did some of the highest damage out of any of the Moon-Scorched, and I had not even attempted to face him before. Perhaps this guy would be my end, but I had to try. I played it safe, starting with a guard. He didn't do that much damage when guarding, so that was good. Then I hit him with the bob and weave and a meat grinder. I got lucky enough that he only managed to hit me once, and now it was time for me to do even more, damn it. Yeah, that was way easier than expected. Only 2 more opponents left now, both of which presented the most fear for me. Valkyrie, for she hath the javelin ability of the Bellends, combined with her regular claw attacks that hit twice. This was quite the situation. Thankfully, however, being the gambler I am, I went for bob and weave, even while at somewhat low HP, and dodged one of her claw attacks. This was incredibly lucky, as if her other claw attack had managed to hit, I would have died. This was a piece of divine intervention. I must not waste this chance. I healed up just to be safe, and then attacked her torso. After this, my next point of attack would be to, okay, she's dead. You know, I'm starting to think I might be a bit more overpowered than I had originally thought to be. Now, it was just one final fight I had to face. Kali Gura, the same one who had previously killed me in one turn, even with me guarding. I headed into the sewers, fully awaiting Kali Gura to appear at any time to shove his balls in my face. But this didn't happen. I had managed to make it back to the city without him appearing. Now, since I didn't want to repeat all of that over again, I figured I would just go ahead and save at the church, so in case I did die to Caligura, I wouldn't have to repeat much of anything. Since I still had the ability to get another Book of Enlightenment from Pocket Cat using those contestant heads that I got.
Nope, nobody can stop me. Nothing can stop me.
Now, I was on the hunt for Caligura. I would find him and kill him.
Is he over here? Come on, Caligura. Caligura! There he is! There he is! That's him right there. Caligura! You piece of shit!
But he doesn't come out of...
Yeah, come on! Let's go, let's go, let's go.
I started by hitting him with the mischief of rats to stun him. He vomits on me, but it doesn't do shit. Then bob and weave to a slash with the meat grinder. He hits me with that hanky panky, the one that ended me with guard before. 23 damage total. Hell yeah. And then another slash. After a final vomit, he was down.
Yes! Whoa! What the fuck do you think of that, you little bitch?
Once again, a lot easier than I expected, though he did probably pose the highest threat, so that's an accomplishment still. I honestly wasn't even sure what skills to get anymore, so I decided I would just go and buy the Book of Enlightenment from Pocket Cat and save deciding on my skills for later.
There he is. Hey, fuck, what? He doesn't spawn?
Items I could for the final fight. But my blackjack hand wasn't done yet. I hit and was...
Who is this? Okay, what about this panel? Or this one? See, I showed some of these to some friends, and only a few could notice something was off. If any of those didn't make you suspicious, then what about this one? I know it looks like Guts is ready to talk about his ninja way, but this is not Guts. And this is not Berserk, but actually Katsuji Yashima from a 9-chapter manga called Japan. 1992 is the year. By this point, Kentaro Miura had a few years working Berserk, the prototype in 1988, and by 1992, the original Volume 4 of Berserk would be released February of that year. With a total of 8 chapters being released, the very end the prologue chapters of Golden Age and then the first 5. Art-wise, he is much improved from where we were in the Black Swordsman arc, but this is still the early stage of what would become the most recognizable versions of Guts, Casca, and Griffith, at least for the Golden Age arc. Most fans' knowledge of Miura starts and stops with Berserk. Hell, from what I've heard, apparently newer fans are accused of not even reading it, which hurts my soul. But in 1985, he released a one-shot titled Repeat, which won an award for Best New Author in Weekly Shonen Magazine. Little did they know, but in 1992, he worked as an artist for Japan. This is the key distinction. He didn't write for it, just illustrated. We'll get into it in a bit, but believe me, it makes a huge difference. The author was Buronson. My brain went to the next as well. I'm curious if any of you did this. Anyways, that's just the pen name. He's also known as Yoshiyuki Okamura. Still doesn't ring a bell? Well, he worked on Fist of the North Star and a whole lot of other works. Seriously, the man has enough to give each nickname he went by feel like their own person. Quick break to shout out today's sponsor, Figurama Collectors. That's right, collecting about. Well, Japan is a manga, to say the least. If you type that it's actually a country, I'm going to skull fuck. Yuka Katsuragi is a well-known TV reporter. She's also caught the eye of Katsuji Yashima, a hot-headed Yakuza type who isn't exactly subtle about his feelings. Determined to win her over, Katsuji and his brother follow her all the way to Spain, only for Yuka to shut him down cold. But before anyone can head home, disaster strikes. Massive earthquake tears through the area. In the chaos, Katsuji, his brother, Yuka, and a group of Japanese high school students on a field trip are swallowed deep beneath the earth. Down in the dark, they stumble across an old woman who seems to know more than she should. She warns them that Japan, rich and powerful as it is now, is heading towards the same ruin that once wiped out the ancient city of Carthage. Of course, they do what any reasonable person would do and laugh at her. The woman decides to give them a first-hand look at what's coming, sending them into a vision of Japan's future. A land stripped bare, drowning in poverty and death. A near-future political drama where Japan goes to shit, unrest breaks out, and the country finds itself at the mercy of foreign powers. Because in true early 90s manga fashion, the story escalates from slightly dystopian to full-on nationalistic fever dream. In other words, the Japanese in a post-apocalyptic world, Miura illustrating this, makes total sense. One of his biggest inspirations for his works being Fist of the North Star, and for films, he was a big fan of Mad Max. It is worth noting this isn't the only manga these two would work on together. Previously worked on King of Wolves, which was released in 1989. Once again related to time travel, but this time to the past, and instead of a slightly uglier Yakuza version of Guts, we get Ponytail Guts, who's trying to save his lover who's been taken away and wheeled, and Guts if he was a Saiyan or Violence Jack. Surely I'm not the only one seeing the same face syndrome here, right? But what I find really interesting is the Chinese setting, and the surface concepts of the character dynamics feel more like a Kingdom prototype at times. Despite only 3 chapters, King of Wolves actually felt like a far more satisfying story to read, and had a really cool idea for its ending that made it more memorable than Japan. 2 lovers find themselves in the past, and after some struggle, the male lead, Iba, finds himself working under the legendary Genghis Khan, who wants to then kill Iba and take his girl and child for himself. Even though Genghis probably had a few hundred children up to that point, but anyways. This of course leads to conflict where Iba defeats Genghis, who then commits seppuku because of honor and dishonor, which leaves Iba to maintain history by becoming the new Genghis Khan, hence the title King of Wolves, leaving Kyoko, his lover, in the present with no one else to know the truth. Going back to Japan, however, we follow Katsuji dealing with the state of the Japanese people being treated as outcasts and having to preserve the life of his friends while learning more about the awful state of things, building up and gathering his forces to fight against the evil Europeans. As hard as I tried to like each chapter I read, I was trying to get invested into something and I couldn't. The art was cool, but there was nothing really here for me in terms of the characters, and that very well might have been intentional to make sure the message of the story is the only thing you take away. It also didn't help that I watched the South Park episode of City Walk vs. City Sushi, so reading this became a lot funnier than intended. The story of Japan eventually barrels towards its big finale. Ugly bastard Guts, who started the story chasing after a girl way out of his league, ends up as one screaming about saving the entirety of a nation, the new state of Japan. In this bleak future where Japan has basically been wiped off the map and its people are scattered across the globe, he decides he's the guy to pull everyone together and fight back. It's the kind of ending where the fist gets clenched, speech gets made, and suddenly you're meant to believe that this delinquent gangster is going to lead Japan out of the apocalypse. Subtle, not at all, entertaining, and that's really how Japan wraps up. That's it. There's not really much to talk about here, unfortunately. It's loud, it's dramatic, and it's very 90s. The whole thing reads like a nationalist fever dream mixed with Mad Max, and instead of feeling prophetic, it feels pulpy. If Berserk was Miura working through fate, trauma, reread of 20th Century Boys was in order. I had to do a lot of drugs to get my brain in the right state for this video since Friend starts off very vague, and he opens up the talk about such things like cult behavior and government shit I won't talk about since I love life, and the video would risk losing focus. Similar to Johan, although not to the same degree, the character goes from this grand thing into something more personal, but even then that's when the story becomes even more complicated and confusing for some people, as then Friend's character takes a completely different step. So at first, it seems I'm going over the story beats more than the actual character. It's kinda necessary in order to lay the groundwork. I hope this video can serve as a good explanation of the character for anyone who might have some confusions, and a look into how a mortal man that was put in control becomes a god. The year is 1973 and rock is played over the school speakers, a song titled 20th Century Boy, and nothing happens. At this time, a group of friends have a hideout where they hang out and talk about this grand story which they write down, detailing some of the events that will happen before the world is threatened with doom. This is a base for them, and one of them draws a symbol that is just for them. This is the symbol of friendship, and anyone who knows this symbol is a true friend. We jump to the present time where one of the kids grew up and is now taking care of his sister's daughter, and finds that symbol drawn on the side of a home, but he can't remember where it's from. This is Kenji, the protagonist of our story, who slowly gets more involved in uncovering a cult that is rapidly gaining influence, a cult led by a mysterious man using the symbol of friendship, and has a Patreon, link in the description. I'm a shameless bastard, I know. Quote, "The world is coming to an end very, very soon, but everyone here with me will be saved." Kenji is trying to uncover the symbol as he recognizes it and the tie it has from his old friend who is found dead. Kenji is trying to cult that is rapidly gaining energy. The protagonist of our story, who slowly gets more involved in uncovering a cult that is rapidly gaining influence, a cult led by a mysterious man using the symbol of friendship, and has a Patreon, link in the description. I'm a shameless bastard, I know. Quote, "The world is coming to an end very, very soon, but everyone here with me will be saved." Kenji is trying to uncover the symbol as he recognizes it and the tie it has from his old friend who is found dead, and soon after a religious leader of a sect is assassinated. Quote, "This is not the end but the beginning. Many people who preach false doctrine shall be purified from now on. The cosmos have begun to choose their true friends." The cult in this story was actually inspired by a real-life cult that took place in Japan, the Aum Shinrikyo, I think that's how it's pronounced, or Supreme Truth. Long story short, a guy who thinks he's Jesus gets a lot of followers and some who have a lot of money. This Japanese Jesus has psychic powers and believes in killing non-believers, and they even try getting into politics but fail. So they turn to the next logical thing. Chemical warfare. Sound familiar? If you want to know more on this cult that inspired Urasawa, look up the Tokyo subway sarin attack or watch Sigi's video on the subject. Low-key the best channel along with Alexander when it comes to anything Urasawa related. In 20th Century Boys, Urasawa seems to ask the question of what would happen if a cult like this went all the way. As Friend, the leader does manage to get his plans to work. First, San Francisco is hit, and then London, but Friend is only doing what is written in the Book of Prophecy, written by the great prophet, Kenji. Quote, "At the end of the 20th century, an evil organization plotted world domination. First, they bombarded San Francisco and London with terrifying biological weapons. Next, they spread germs in Osaka, famous for the 1970 World Fair." By the way, put a pin on that. Japan was shivering in fright. Then, the evildoers' next aim was the Haneda airport. Tokyo was overwhelmed with fear it could not escape, but this is where the real terror begins. The signal of world destruction is fired. December 31st, 2000, with loud rumbling and tremors, a giant shape appeared in Tokyo. A giant atomic-powered robot. It laid waste to all as it spread out more deadly germs. Will the 21st century come at all? Tokyo, no. The world's fate is in the balance. And then 9 brave warriors stood forth. How will they fight to keep the peace of the world? The pages after were torn out. It turns out someone from their childhood group of friends is the one behind all of this, and they have been getting their ideas from the story Kenji made up when they were little, so he at least has a direction on who to question and what the next move might be. Friend, on the other hand, has been banishing or purifying anyone who might be getting too close that he doesn't want to be involved. The terrifying thing is, it seems so much is connected. Kenji's sister Kiriko, who is a scientist that left and went missing, the symbol, the death of someone close to him, and the death of
Oh my god, hell.
Of influential people. For every answer, there are two options. For every solution, there are two problems. And for every one step he takes closer, friend is 2 steps ahead. Kenji once had a dream to be a rock star, but now he will have to unite his old buddies to save the world. This is a BBC News special report. At subway platforms all over London, a number of passengers have collapsed, bleeding profusely. We have no further information, but this seems to be the same case as the mysterious outbreak in 1997. A news report from the French government. It appears citizens at several cafes in Paris have spit up blood and suddenly collapsed. CBS News special report. We've just received word that more than 40 people at Rockefeller Center in New York have suddenly fallen dead. We have reporter John Mayfield at the scene. Are you there, John? John? Okay, it seems he's not there yet. Reporting from Moscow, we ask that all citizens act calmly and rationally. Do not approach Red Square. I repeat, a large number of people have recently collapsed in Red Square. We ask that you act calmly and... I was gonna voice act this last bit, but it sounded so terrible. Just imagine like Joe Rogan is the reporter instead of John Mayfield, I guess. While all of this is going on, Eminem was actually making good music, and a giant robot was killing a bunch of people. Kenji and the gang have all gathered to put a stop to this madness. And then the story jumps to the year 2014. Look, I don't entirely agree with the sentiment that 20th Century Boys has bad pacing, but it does skip to the future and uncover the perspective via new characters meeting the old ones like 3 times. By the 3rd time, it got a little annoying. The story mainly takes place in 3 time periods. At first, just 2 being in the present around the year 2000 and the 1970s when the cast were kids. And then we jump again to 2014 and on, and that becomes the present time. And the story will flash back to events in the 2000s and once again in the 1970s. But the story now follows Kana, the little girl that Kenji was taking care of for his sister. More grown up, and now we see her take a bowl of ramen to a gravestone and wishes her uncle Kenji a happy birthday. A giant friend symbol behind the memorial, and someone else has already left an empty bowl. In this current age, Kenji is missing. Ocho has been locked up and the world has to obey Friend, who staged himself as the savior that took down the evil Kenji faction, framing Kenji and his friends for the events that went down. Remember Syndrome from The Incredibles? How he unleashed the robot on the city just to stop it himself and look like the hero? It's pretty much just like that. By the way, am I the only one who thought he was called Syndrome? Because, you know. But in this time, Friend has gone from a small-time cult leader to a world leader, and disobeying Friend, even for drawing what is considered not okay, can get you put in prison or banished. And teenagers get sent to a type of Disney World where they get brainwashed if they show any signs of disobedience. This first major aspect of Friend that is made clear in this section of the story, and only gets more true, is that all of it is show and gimmicks, and used to oppress everybody. The story presents him to us as possibly supernatural, but it becomes clear he is David Blaine, if David Blaine was really hell-bent on world domination. There isn't much we know about Friend at all. Nothing even remotely human is shown about him outside of this. Quote, I am Collins. From my position in the moon's orbit, I watched Armstrong and Aldrin land and walk on the surface. I was so close to the ground of the moon, and yet I returned without having trod upon it. I am Collins. Friend is seen crying. This quote is very important to Friend as a character. We will get back to it again, but that moment in chapter 6 establishes to us that he is indeed human, and for some reason quoting this brought him to tears. He feels like Collins, someone who was right there, present, but unlike his peers was not given the privilege to step foot on the moon, or did not get the fame or the notoriety of doing so. When we talk about the moon landing, everyone talks about Armstrong. No one seems to care for Collins. The story after jumping to Kana retraces its steps, showing us how we got here, and as the present characters see the truth, so do we. Everything we see of Friend is almost like the Wizard of Oz, someone using smoke and mirrors to give off an illusion. He puts on a show, but behind what seems to be miracles and stunning displays are nothing more than props and half-assed attempts. He is a clear depiction of an individual that preys on others' need for a leader, for purpose, for power, and for a savior. Create a hell and then offer them a way out. Create a disease and offer people the cure. Ingrain in people that they are doomed and they will follow anything you tell them for a way out. I want to clarify, I don't think Friend is a critique on religion as a whole, but people who use politics, religion, or cult-like communities for their own benefit and personal gain. It isn't hard to see how you can abuse masses of people and get them to behave in a certain way by tapping into their need to belong and have meaning. Sweeping all manners of religion under the rug would be like a 15-year-old who just found out what atheism is. But with all of those who rise to power in this way, what they have is never enough. And the next move of Friend is revealed in a book that was found and handed to Yukiji back in 2002. The original Book of Prophecy was written by Kenji in 1969, but this one states that, quote, in 2014 there will be a gathering at a church in Shinjuku, and then a nightmarish world will begin once more. At that gathering, a savior will arise in the name of justice, but be assassinated. Long live the Expo, long live the Expo. Progress and harmony for mankind, and then a new world president will be born. Friend plans on becoming the president of the entire world, but who is Friend? The events in the story show us the showdown that happened between Friend and Kenji, and how his top lackeys were given the credit for stopping the terrorists. We see one of Kenji's friends, Fukabe, a man whose wife got entangled in the cult, go to stop him, and they both fall off the building, but Fukabe, when he pulls Friend's mask off, says that it isn't who he thought it was for sure. Sadakiyo, an eccentric kid who was always wearing a mask. Kind of like this one. Kazumi, a girl who escapes Friend's Disney World in present time, ends up with Kenji's friends in Kana, learning the truth of what happened. She meets Sadakiyo, who turns out to be Friend, but someone who has been working with Friend from the start and is now sick of it. Sadakiyo is an amazing character, and starts to delve into the idea of what happens to a human being that has no attachment, no identity, or an identity they want to discard entirely. Quote, I wanted friends. I believed that aliens would come down from outer space and be my friends. The aliens never saw me. There was only one teacher who always showed up with this comically poor timing. I wanted friends. The class representative Gucci-kun and his friends, always playing soccer. But I couldn't play soccer. Whenever I approached Nobu-kun and his friends in the newspaper club, but who I really wanted to join, who I really wanted to be friends with, was Kenji's group and their secret base. End quote. There we see a young Sadakiyo interacting with Friend that snuck into Kenji's base and read the Book of Prophecy. Sadakiyo says that was his only friend, but he treats him like a slave. Whoever Friend is from a young age, he had a knack of using people for his plans, people desperate for some sort of connection, those in need of a friend. I was debating doing a drinking game with the word friend, but I don't drink and that would have killed me, like 5 minutes ago, give or take. He is shown to be insane, talking to his mother who isn't there, and he wonders if he's good or evil, saving Kazumi from those who work for Friend, seemingly sacrificing himself. Just as you get close to finding out who Friend is, there seems to be two possibilities that appear. There are two revelations made about this character, that Friend is Kana's father, and the identity of Friend himself. Fukabe. Okay, so Kenji's sister got up and left to protect her daughter, and for other reasons we will get into, from Friend who is actually Fukabe, the guy who said his wife got caught up with the cult and was last seen falling to his death while fighting Friend. Pretty simple for the most part. Now we know who Friend is, right? All there is now is to understand the motivations, and we're good. Why did Fukabe do all of this? Well, Fukabe, as the story goes on, is shown to be a rather psychotic individual. As a kid growing up, he has multiple moments that give off similar vibes to the card scene in American Psycho, someone getting very mad over something completely inconsequential. The weird thing that happened in the science room was Fukabe faking his death, similar to how Friend pretends to float. The obsession with the Expo He, from a young age, is obsessed with needing validation from people, their praise, and it doesn't matter if he is a fraud as long as he isn't perceived as one. The story early on goes into some of these events that happened when these characters were kids, things that suggested the possibility of something supernatural, but in the end it all turns out to be pranks and lies orchestrated by Fukube and his buddies. He will not tolerate being perceived as a failure or not legitimate. His treatment of Sadakiyo and everything we see from Friend shows someone that cares more about what he can gain from others and their worship than any sort of genuine human connection. I'll be your friend as long as you view me as a god and follow every order I give you. An individual that has seemingly never grew out of that need for others to confirm his identity and give it value. He needs to be Armstrong, but his whole life he was Collins. He will kill whoever and however many he needs to preserve the illusion that he is otherwise. Turns out as well, Kana's mother Kiriko also carries guilt of having created the disease that killed thousands of people and is now trying to fix her mistakes. A lot of this aspect of Fukube's character is actually explored much later on, but I felt like it's necessary to go into it a bit now so it's not super overwhelming later. Because as soon as we find out Friend is Fukube, he fucking dies. But then, another friend appears. So this is where the big confusion hits and where there are even different interpretations in regard to who the second friend is, and even if there is a second person. The standard explanation is this: there wasn't just one friend this entire time, but two of them. See, Fukube has friends growing up. Granted, maybe friends he never appreciated or saw in that way. But he had Yamane, who along with Kiriko would make the diseases that wreak havoc upon the world, Sadakiyo, who worked for him as well, but there was one more, one who also had a habit of wearing a weird mask. Katsumata. This is the friend that saves the Pope from being assassinated, making it seem like he came back to life to protect the Pope. A miracle. The imposter becomes genuine. Quote, "The man who saved the Pope lay dying on the ground. Just when he had been given eternal life, he turned into a god." Stumbling as he walks, he falls to his knees and points up to the skies. The whole stadium of people there who watched it happen point as well and roar in applause and cheers as a mortal man becomes a god. 1 week later, in front of a packed crowd before the Friend Memorial Palace, he made a complete recovery, to tumultuous rejoicing. As he waved, I could hear him mumble beside me, "Bye-bye now. Later. Wonder how many of you I'll see again." After, a meeting occurs. Just then, all around the world, salesmen wearing gas masks put down their briefcases. The mist they sprayed created beautiful rainbows in the sky, and the world fell into ruin. Don't worry, I'm going back to the Fukube and Katsumata explanation right now. This is where things get a bit messy, as some think Fukube clearly has identity problems, and has them so bad that Katsumata is actually a split personality and not a real person. Most think that there were two friends operating the entire time. Fukube is someone who struggled with his own identity, and Katsumata who never had one and then does his best to steal Fukube's. One looks into a broken mirror, and the other is depicted with no face of his own. I'm more inclined to believe that it is indeed two different people, but I see the intrigue of the other interpretation and how that adds to the character. Either Katsumata and Fukube have been struggling for dominance, one trying to get rid of the other, but again, I'm more inclined to believe that Katsumata was a separate person that took on Fukube's goals and dreams, since he was even more forgotten and left in the dark, seeming like an individual that never had any identity of his own, hence the depictions of him with no face. Nobody remembered him and he has no attachments. Sadakiyo was remembered even if it was just by that one school teacher. Fukube made it so that people would remember him even if it was a lie. And Katsumata has no attachments, no real relationships, so he will take on the mantle of friend and take an identity for himself. It's almost like a Pokemon evolution, where each subsequent version of friend is more severe than the previous one. Although Sadakiyo wasn't friend, he was believed to be friend, but you get what I mean. The story of 20th Century Boys deals with characters stuck in their past, and Friend in particular through Sadakiyo is believed to be friend at first, but then through Fukube and Katsumata shows what a person with no real genuine relationships or attachments can be capable of. Ironically, a man with no true understanding of what a friend is, but tricks the world with promises of such a thing. But as Friend revisits these memories of the past, he sees a new one, and we now see he is on top of a large tower amidst run-down homes in the year 3F. Third year of the Friend era. This new friend displays more erratic and impulsive behavior, convincing the people that an alien invasion is going to happen, and they think Kenji, who returns bringing a song, is a possible alien. Even though this is a different person, the essence of Friend in terms of his relationship with his followers are the same. Create a problem that he is the solution to, shackle them with fear, and be the bearer of the key. But this is no longer a cult, but the entire world which he has brought to ruin. I think one of the creepiest scenes this friend has is in chapter 221. Kana's mother is currently testing a cure, and if she survives 24 hours, humanity will be saved from Friend's plan. But Kana is brought to have dinner with this friend. Who are you? Just who are you? What are you saying? I'm the real him. It has from his old friend who is found dead, and soon after a religious leader of a sect is assassinated. Quote, "This is not the end but the beginning. Many people who preach false doctrine shall be purified from now on. The cosmos have begun to choose their true friends." The cult in this story was actually inspired by a real-life cult that took place in Japan, the Aum Shinrikyo, I think that's how it's pronounced, or Supreme Truth. Long story short, a guy who thinks he's Jesus gets a lot of followers and some who have a lot of money. This Japanese Jesus has psychic powers and explanation of the key. But this is no longer a cult, but the entire world which he has brought to ruin. I think one of the creepiest scenes this friend has is in chapter 221. Kana's mother is currently testing a cure, and if she survives 24 hours, humanity will be saved from Friend's plan. But Kana is brought to have dinner with this friend. Who are you? Just who are you? What are you saying? I'm the real him. I'm your father. Don't play dumb, I know you aren't him. I wonder if you remember. I went on walks with you in a baby carriage. Back then I held you high like this, higher and higher like this. No way, it wasn't you. We are reunited at last. Let's have a meal. Okay, Kana? What would you like? Tell me whatever you want to eat. How many are there? How many people are pulling the strings behind the scenes like you? I can't believe this is our first time having a meal together. You plan on eating with that mask on? You have a point there. Friend takes his mask off. They perform plastic surgery. No doubt you look exactly like him, but too bad, huh? I don't quite remember my father's face. Kana, I've made you feel lonely for such a long time. Another show? The real friend put on a show too, that is. It's just as you suspect. You've grown to become a smart child. I tested a lot of things on your mother while she was pregnant, so that you could turn out that way. What did you do to mother? Just gave her a little secret medicine. So that means because of that, this power... Kana bends the spoon. Wonderful. You inherited my power. My great power. What Friend did was a complete lie. Friend's spoon bending was a fraud. Prophetizing too. He can't possibly do that. Lies, 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 all lies. He just wanted this power so badly he couldn't stand it. But what great power? What's the use in bending spoons? What's the point of this power? Writing songs, singing from the bottom of one's heart, bringing tears to people's eyes. Those are much greater powers. After that, Friend's lackeys show up and he gives them the order. This girl, banish her. Kana does manage to get away, but what I think makes this scene creepy and what it shows is how far this friend has gone to cling to an identity that isn't his. But it shows the big difference between Kenji and Friend in the final arc. Kenji returns, having let go of his past and accepting his current role in reality, while Friend continues to hold on desperately, playing a game. Kenji returns singing tunes from the bottom of his heart, inspiring others to sing along with him, while Friend uses deception and tricks to bend people's will like spoons, to go according to his goals. The crew, once again united, plans to stop Friend's plan to wipe out what's left of humanity and take back their symbol of friendship. True friendship. Friend wakes up and flashes back to his past, thinking to himself, again, the same every day. This world, necessary. Am I necessary or unnecessary? The world, is it necessary or unnecessary? This world. He puts on his mask and reads the last page of the new book of prophecy. The last page. Today is the day. Friend gives a TV broadcast. Hey everyone. Good day, people of the world. Do you all remember the bloody New Year's of 2000? In 2015, the last year of AD, a lot of people died from the virus. It all went according to my prophecies. Now aliens are invading Earth with flying saucers. You might be frightened. You must want to flee to Mars, all exactly as my prophecy said. The world never recognized my genius. I am necessary, but this world is not. I did them all. God made this world in 1 week, so I will end this world in 1 week. Farewell, everyone. Kenji-kun, let's play. Fukube needs the world to give him the validation he wants. Katsumata doesn't need the world at all. This is what makes Friend tricky to talk about, because what Friend represents in terms of the cult and even government-like workings of a leader, and the evils caused by that remains a constant, while the mantle of Friend means to each character and their goals with it changes depending on which one you're talking about. The first friend turns out to be a little boy that never outgrew his psychotic obsession to be praised and to get what he wants from people, the reactions he needs. The second friend is a pure agent of chaos and a harbinger of destruction that sees the world as his playground to get rid of once he is done. Both come from a similar issue of not having real human connection, but to different degrees. When we add Sadakiyo back into the mix, as I said earlier, we can see the progression of the story in regards to friend. The first not actually being friend and having the desire to genuinely have friendship, still having ties to the world and finding hope and redemption in the end. The second having a skewed idea and way of going about friendship, a manipulative psycho but one that still has some ties to the world. And the last having none whatsoever. There was a moment where I was genuinely unsure about Fukube and Katsumata being the same person, as there is a moment where Friend awakens from visiting his past memories and then seeing the future one of Kenji. He doesn't see it as Katsumata observing Fukube, but like if he was Fukube. There's also a moment where it seems Fukube lost his face and then looks in the mirror saying he has one, that he isn't Sadakiyo or Katsumata, and questioning himself laughing, he asks, "Who are you?" I interpret this as Katsumata going so far that he has the machine programmed to take on Fukube's memories as his own, so he can better steal his identity, but again, feel free to interpret it in your own way, of course. There is a scene that happens earlier in the manga where they show how Friend levitating was clearly a trick, and standing behind the curtain as the rope is being pulled, Manjome, the main lackey of Friend, sees the people in awe and says, "What is it? What's with their expressions?" Nothing at all. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just believing in something they want to. Some need a savior, someone who can inspire them and give them a purpose, a community, the belief that there is more to a life that they aren't content with. Through false promises and cheap magic tricks, a man can make normal and not so normal people behave in ways they never would in peacetime. What makes Friend terrifying is despite all that goes on with his character, and even though it comes from a fictional place, his actions, the way he uses people to gain power, the way those who work for Friend operate, is something that can be seen in the real world. In what ways exactly? I honestly don't know, and most of us will never know. Ignorance is bliss. But the ending of 20th Century Boys, with all its culminating at the expo, Kenji has inspired people with a song that in the year 2015 rock is played and something huge has happened. Friend and Kenji have their face-off. The fate of the world is on the line. Friend has the remote to control the robot and is a step close to fulfilling his plans. Kenji says he remembers everything from their childhood and pleads for Friend to stop. And before Friend can press the button to a different controller since Ocho stopped the robot, Sadakiyo returns, who had been alive the whole time, and says that he is a good guy. The flying saucer is shot out of the sky and lands on Friend, killing him. Friend's death and the aspects to Katsumata I spoke about are expanded more in 21st Century Boys. But after defeating Friend, a concert is held, and Kenji performs in front of the crowd. Humanity united and connected through true friendship and rock. Are monsters born or made? Could a monster exist in human form and merit comparisons to the Antichrist or Satan himself? Writing a character with no supernatural abilities, but is arguably the most bone-chilling villain in anime and manga, is no short feat. An agent of chaos that can kill with words alone, written by the legendary Naoki Urasawa, Johann Liebert from Monster, and what makes him, in my opinion, the greatest antagonist in anime and manga. If you were getting a case of deja vu, yes, I've done a video like this before, but I feel like it needed a redo. I rewatched Monster last year, wondering if it would still hold the same after a few years, and without a doubt it did. Monster is Urasawa's most popular work, and I think his best followed by Pluto, 20th Century Boys, and then Billy Bat. Although they're all 10 out of 10 for me for different reasons, so the order doesn't entirely matter. I would recommend them all. His ability to intertwine his characters and have them all lead to a central message while keeping you hooked with his murder mystery narratives make him my favorite mangaka of all time, and Monster is the prime example of his strengths as an author. Johann is the most talked about character in Monster, and understandably so, but Monster has an amazing cast of characters, don't be fooled, that each elevate each other. 10 Million Grimmer serving as amazing contrast to Johann, but more on that later. But what is it about Johann that has us hold his character in such a high regard and become the most memorable thing for most in a series full of fantastic characters? Another important question is how can you make your browsing experience better with today's sponsor, Opera GX? Aesthetics matter a lot to me, if you haven't noticed, and with Opera GX, the way that you can customize stuff is genuinely awesome. I got the Berserk theme and wallpaper because, of course, I did, but for the sound effects, such as going through tabs or typing, I set it to Dark Souls, so you can pick and choose what exactly you want for the customization in the mods menu. You should even be able to find what you're looking for with the absurd amount of mods in the GX store. Oh look, they even have a monster one. Some of these animated wallpapers that you can get in the Opera add-on section are worth checking out as well. GX also saves time by having a sidebar that with one click allows you to use ChatGPT, which can help with any basic research, finding out what episodes are filler, give a summary of a long paragraph and more. Say I needed a quick reference of Naoki Urasawa and his works, and there it is. If you have any questions about that, there is a link in the description below. Speaking of, you can download it for free using the link below and start using a browser that does far more than the bare minimum. You can even have what you're watching pop out and you can adjust it so you can watch while multitasking. Very useful if you need to get a longer series like Gintama done. Plus, the transition is made easy by being able to import your browser history, bookmarks, and anything you want to move over for convenience. Just go to browser settings, synchronization, import bookmark and settings, and just hit import. Simple as all things should be. So do yourself a favor and browse efficiently and in style with Opera GX. Link in the description. The story of Monster begins with Dr. Tenma, a Japanese man living in Germany who is done dirty in life by the politics of working within a hospital trying to gain as much money and notoriety as possible, even if that means crossing moral lines. Tenma is said as a man who values life and believes all life is valuable and precious, which is his motivation to be a doctor, to save lives. The irony and hook of the premise at first is that this conviction to stick to his morals causes him to save a little boy that was shot in the head. But that boy would grow up to be responsible for a series of murders, including the ones Tenma would be accused of, that being the head of the hospital that fired Tenma. So immediately, the moral struggle of Tenma needing to take responsibility for the life he saved plays into motion, as he needs to find this killer to clear his own name. Before really getting close to the character, you see many talk about Johan and how terrifying he is, appropriate for a murder mystery and build-up that would then be proven by his actions once we see it. For the most part. The terror on Anna's face passed out when she saw Johan was alive in the hospital as children. He reaches out to her crying when she screams, and everything with Johan and his sister is vital, but I'll get back to that. Be prepared to hear that a few more times as the video goes on. Junkers and his friend then describing him, the man who hired them to do a job, as a monster. Roll credits. And Junkers, who is Tenma's patient, is then killed in front of Tenma. Johan admits he's the one responsible before getting away, responsible for the murder of the head of the hospital, the one that fired Tenma, just clarification. The mystery to Johan is not only what makes him interesting, but is rather a large part of his character, the question of whether he really exists or if something like him can exist. An evil many characters in the series refuse to believe is a possibility, and the truth that he exists serves as a shock later on in the series. It fundamentally destroys what they believe in. Tenma travels to Munich trying to learn about Johan, and is looking for those who might have known him when he was a young boy to gather some clues that might help him find Johan, or at the very least understand what he's dealing with. An old blind man and Tenma are then sitting at a table, and the old man begins. "You were just as he described, Dr. Tenma." "Oh? He was deeply grateful to you. He said you saved his life, that you meant more than a parent to him." "What was he called?" Tenma asked. "Franz. But he said that wasn't his real name." "He told you that? Sounds like he really opened up to you." "Franz came here suddenly. He lived with the childish highness across a way for about a year. The old man then says he stayed for 13 months and then disappeared. He was extremely sharp and well-mannered too. He seemed far older than 12. Did he come here often?" "Yes, every day in fact. I live alone, so I was glad to have the company. He sat in that chair right there and studied for hours. I taught him English and French, and he made rapid progress. By the time he disappeared, he nearly mastered both languages, at the tender age of 12 no less. Do you remember anything else about him? He listened avidly to whatever I told him. But you know what interested him the most?" "What?" Tenma asks. "War." He then explains how he served on the U-boat and the story when he was attacked. Quote, "An ordinary child might have enjoyed the account as an adventure story, but not Franz. What fascinated him was the element of absolute terror. How does a person respond at the brink of the abyss of death? That was what interested Franz. Terror amused him. Things in the story continue to escalate from here on, and more pieces of the puzzle get added and more characters intertwined as Tenma has to go out on the run while stopping Johan, but a piece of what makes Johan effective is laid out in this conversation. Now, the aspect of him quickly learning languages at such a young age is to show his intelligence, a huge part of how he's able to stay 10 steps ahead. But I do find it interesting that what Johan learned from an ex-soldier was not how to kill with a gun, but how to speak multiple languages, as Johan is not just at his deadliest with a gun, but with his words. Something else is the fascination with terror and death. If you look at all the murders Johan is responsible for or commits, compared to other notorious villains or even real-life serial killers, there isn't really anything physically brutal like mutilation. Johan doesn't torture the body, but if not, chooses to torture a person's mind and soul, and then kill them swiftly. His gentleman-like demeanor, beauty, and elegance draws people in, but it's also that he can get closer to you and poke and prod to gain more information and expose your deepest vulnerabilities, like guilt-tripping a man over his greatest regret and offering him a bottle of alcohol, knowing alcoholism and that mistake is what has ruined his life. This scene is chills every time you watch it in the anime. The more we know about Johan, the more each interaction terrifies us, the audience, for the well-being of other characters. Feels as if they are walking on the edge of the roof with the wind violently blowing alongside Johan, but every single time the one to fall is not Johan. It wouldn't be much of a stretch to make some comparison to Johan in the Antichrist. Granted, almost every blowing alongside Johan, but every single time the one to fall is not Johan. It wouldn't be much of a stretch to make some comparison to Johan in the Antichrist. Granted, almost every villain with that kind of demeanor and then reveals how wicked and perverse they actually are once you become trapped is often compared to Satan, but the way Johan views humanity and goes about his interactions with people can be drawn back to the dynamic Satan has with humanity. Neither Satan or Johan are omnipresent and have demons to do some of their dirty work. While poking at the sins of a person as Satan did to Judas, Johan convinces Richard to do the same, end his own life, presenting himself almost like an angel of light, taking on many names. When Tenma goes to save Dieter, a little boy from an ex-director from Kinderheim 511, an orphanage where they experimented on children to create the perfect soldier, the director shares what Johan said at just the age of 10 years old when he was at Kinderheim. Quote, "It was 10 years ago. Children, staff, 50 in all. They all perished and Johan watched it happen. From this very spot." Johan just sat and watched. I asked Johan, "How the hell did you pull this off?" Do you know what he said? He dropped an oil-soaked rag into the fire, just like this. Whenever a group of people are put together, hatreds emerge. I just added a little fuel to the fire. Some, when they see evil on display, might be inclined to blame the devil. But many times all the devil has to do is give a little shove, and human nature will take care of the rest. The very first episode of Monster starts off, in fact, with a passage from Revelation. Might be inclined to blame the devil. But many times all the devil has to do is give a little shove, and human nature will take care of the rest. The very first episode of Monster starts off, in fact, with a passage from Revelation 13, verses 1 through 4. "Then I stood on a sand of sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard, his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne and great authority, and I saw one of the heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world marveled and followed the beast. So they worshipped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, 'Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him?'" Now, this not only adds some validity to the Antichrist or Satan comparisons that I think the story does definitely try to push, as also other character dialogues point to the same, but is an accurate statement about how the neo-Nazis in the story who were in charge of Kinderheim saw Johann, and how those who interact with him see him as a great monster, and they give him all he needs so that he can have his way. It makes Johann out to be the way that they saw him, a born monster full of amazing power that no one can go to war with. Tenma even says that Johann was created by what happened at Kinderheim, but the man clarifies and says that that was just minor experiments to create the ultimate soldiers, but Johann was no soldier. He was a leader destined for greatness. Quote, "We can never create a masterpiece like Johann intentionally. From the beginning, he was beyond human. He was like a monster." There seems to be a lot going on, but this will be the back and forth question throughout the series that different characters try to answer. Was this monster born or made? And how is a monster created if you can indeed make one? Everywhere Johann goes, death follows, and if he doesn't kill you physically, he will kill your soul and your mind, and you yourself can take care of the physical part. Early on, what makes Johann so effective is how he's able to know so much about those he interacts with, constantly be a step ahead, know who they are and what they desire, while the others know little to nothing about Johann, putting on this face of a well-mannered, soft-spoken gentleman as he does with Schuwald. Another moment in the story where Johann feels like something beyond human. He did whatever he could to get close and gain favor with Schuwald to have money, but because Johann isn't motivated by money, it's just what he needs to further his goal at the time. There is some context to Schuwald that is important. This isn't some sweet old man like the other victims of Johann. This man is known as the Vampire of Bayern, a ruthless, cold-hearted businessman that is nearing the end of his life, damn near blind and confined to a wheelchair. A man who can never find his lover and has a son out there that he has never met. The perfect target for a manipulative psychopath. The moment to kill Schuwald comes during a ceremony where a lot of people are trapped and the place is set on fire. To Johann, burning a room full of people is no more than someone pissing on an anthill. All of this is meaningless to him, as when Schuwald asks if Johann is going to kill him, Johann decides he has a change of plans. Although, there is something to this, so once again, I'll get back to that. A different idea has popped into my head, he says, with the library set ablaze. Johann asks if Schuwald is afraid, and the old man asks who he is and where did he come from. Johann gets very close in one of the more iconic shots in Monster. Quote, "Can you see me? Even with your feeble eyes, if I get this close, can you see what's reflected in my eyes? I was born in a town straight out of a fairy tale. Many people died. My other self and I held hands and walked. We were the only two people in the world, and we had no names." Schuwald in that moment trembles in fear with realization. As for what he saw reflected in Johann's eyes is answered in chapter 76. Schuwald surviving the incident and everything being cleared as Anna and Tenma showed up there to stop Johann. Johann gets away. But now Schuwald is being watched over by his actual son Karl in the hospital. He says, quote, "There was hell in his eyes. Hell in the eyes of a living human being." Johann at this time in the story is like a demon, or as the story has been alluding to, Satan himself. There isn't much sense to his action and what he does. When looking at a murder scene, one must ask what is the motivation. But for a serial killer like Johann, is there an answer to be found? Something that the story delves into when a psychologist in Monster, he interviews different serial killers trying to get an answer. But Johann went through a lot of time to get close to Schuwald to gain control over a lot of money, but then decides nah, although that was for a reason. But the visual of Johann walking away, standing alone in the flames, provide an answer we get confirmation on more and more. All of this means nothing to Johann. He's an agent of chaos, it's a game. He wishes to watch the world around him burn and be the last one standing. It's not just that he has nothing to lose, in his mind we all have nothing to lose. Everything Johann does is to try and push and prove what he believes is a fact, or what he needs to believe is a fact. Human life has no value and no meaning. Everything is meaningless. Well, that was Johann's goal and still sort of is, but then a more personal motivation is prompted when he reads a book that unlocks the memories of his childhood. His grand, aimless, and sort of absurd goal is then given focus when he reads the tale of the nameless monster, which was in Schuwald's library before he burned it down. The story kinda goes like this. Once upon a time in a land far away there lived a nameless monster. The monster was dying to have a name, so the monster made up his mind and set out on a journey to look for one. But the world was such a very large place. The monster split in two and went on separate journeys. One went east, the other headed west. The one who went east came upon a village. There was a blacksmith who lived at the village's entrance. "Mr. Blacksmith, please give me your name," said the monster. "I can't give you my name," replied the blacksmith. "If you give me your name, I'll go inside you and make you strong," said the monster. "Really?" said the blacksmith. "If you make me stronger, I'll give you my name." The monster went into the blacksmith. And so the monster became Otto the blacksmith. Otto was the strongest man in town, but then one day he said, look at me, the monster inside of me is getting bigger." Munch munch, chomp chomp, gobble gobble, gulp. The hungry monster ate up Otto from the inside out. Once again, he was a monster without a name. Next he went to Hans the shoemaker. However, munch munch, chomp chomp, gobble gobble, gulp. Once again, he went to being a monster without a name. Then he became Thomas the hunter, but soon, munch munch, chomp chomp, gobble gobble, gulp. Back he went to being a monster without a name. The monster next went to a castle to look for a nice name. He came upon a very sick boy who lived in that castle. "If you give me your name, I'll make you strong," said the monster. The boy replied, "If you can make me healthy and strong, I will give you my name." So the monster jumped right into the boy, and the boy became full of vigor. The king was overjoyed. He announced, "The prince is healthy, the prince is strong." The monster became quite fond of the boy's name. He was also quite pleased with his royal life in the castle, so he controlled himself no matter how ravenous his appetite became. Day after day, despite his growing hunger, the monster stayed put inside the boy. But finally, the hunger just became too great. Look at me, said the boy. "The monster inside of me has gotten this big." The boy devoured the king and all his servants. Munch, munch, chomp, chomp, gobble, gobble, gulp. The castle was lonely now with everyone gone, so the boy left on a journey. He walked and walked for days, and then one day, the boy came upon the monster who had gone west. "I have a name," said the boy, "and it's such a wonderful one at that." But the monster who went west replied, "Who needs a name? I'm perfectly happy without one. After all, that's what we are, nameless monsters." The boy ate up the monster who went west. At last he had found a name, but there was no longer anyone to call him by it. Such a shame, because Johann was such a wonderful name. Look, despite his growing hunger, the hungry monster ate up Otto from the inside out. Once again, he was a monster without a name. Next, he went to Hans the shoemaker. However, munch, munch, chomp, chomp, gobble, gobble, gulp. Once again, he went to being a monster without a name. Then he became Thomas the hunter, but soon, munch, munch, chomp, chomp, gobble, gobble, gulp. Back he went to being a monster without a name. The monster next went to a castle to look for a nice name. He came upon a very sick boy who lived in that castle. "If you give me your name, I'll make you strong," said the monster. The boy replied, "If you can make me healthy and strong, I will give you my name." So the monster jumped right into the boy, and the boy became full of vigor. The king was overjoyed. He announced, "The prince is healthy, the prince is strong." The monster became quite fond of the boy's name. He was also quite pleased with his royal life in the castle, so he controlled himself no matter how ravenous his appetite became. Day after day, despite his growing hunger, the monster stayed put inside the boy. But finally, the hunger just became too great. Look at me, said the boy. "The monster inside of me has gotten this big." The boy devoured the king and all his servants. Munch, munch, chomp, chomp, gobble, gobble, gulp. The castle was lonely now with everyone gone, so the boy left on a journey. He walked and walked for days, and then one day, the boy came upon the monster who had gone west. "I have a name," said the boy, "and it's such a wonderful one at that." But the monster who went west replied, "Who needs a name? I'm perfectly happy without one. After all, that's what we are, nameless monsters." The boy ate up the monster who went west. At last he had found a name, but there was no longer anyone to call him by it. Such a shame, because Johann was such a wonderful name. Look, I would love to play the actual scene from the anime, but copyright's a bit of a bitch, okay? Johann, up to this point in the story, however, has been bringing this story to life. He travels into different homes and destroys those he interacts with, taking on a different name and identity as he travels, giving some of those people what they desire is like a deal with Satan himself, only for it to end in their destruction. He is the nameless monster. But what about the other monster the story delves into? Once again, I'll get back to this. But the story takes a shift as the mystery to Johann starts to unravel in the second half. But that's when the complex plot of Monster and the way the entire story circles around its theme is masterfully executed, as well as an aspect to Johann's character that often can get lost in the mix of all his chaotic doings. Johann doesn't just serve as a literal antagonist by being the true murderer Tenma needs to take care of to stop the killings and hopefully prove his innocence, but the idea of Johann is the larger threat. One of the most powerful scenes in Monster is when Johann, dressed up as his twin sister Anna, absolutely shatters the mind and soul of an orphan who's hoping to find his mom. He tells Milos to go to a lively place that is ahead, and quote, "You'll recognize her when you see her, and she'll recognize you when she sees you. But if no one calls out to you, that means nobody wanted you. And then what will you do? What will you do? Go." Milos goes off into town and witnesses a cold and dark world instead, where he isn't wanted and comes to the same realization Johann once did when he was a boy. Tenma and Grimmer find him on a bridge, ready to end it all. Grimmer, who right before this has taken the role as the story's deuteragonist, embraces Milos and tells him, "You have no mother, but there is a reason why you were born. You were born because someone wanted you. It's true, it's true. Someone wished for you, it's true. Some would say he isn't a monster, just ahead of the curve. The Monster is a story with multiple characters, contrasts Johan's belief by providing a different answer and presenting the grand moral conflict of how we respond when life gives us experiences that make it all feel hopeless, finding our actual purpose in life and finding the meaning in life itself. There are three characters that contrast Johan directly, each having their own path but each connecting to Johan in a different way. Two of them I'll discuss in this segment, and the third will be talked about in the end. There are more than just three that have some parallel with Johan, but these are the most important ones. Of course, Dr. Tenma, the protagonist of the story, the yin to Johan's yang, who needs his own video because that's just long overdue. The beginning isn't just a good way of making us sympathetic towards him, but Tenma sticking to his belief in good morals costs him everything. Ava leaves him for another after he proposes, and the head of the hospital derails his career, which is why Ava left him. Everything he has worked for as a man was taken away from him for doing the right thing. If anyone has the right in that moment to view life in a negative light, to say to hell with it and see people as worthless trash, is Tenma. He does express his anger understandably, but I think it's fair to say that he would never act out on it, since the reason he becomes a doctor is to save lives, and the reason why he continues to act like a doctor. Johan, however, takes care of it for him, and given the circumstances, it was easy to pin Tenma for the murders at the hospital. His life is flipped upside down even more, and gets worse as Johan continues his killing spree, and Tenma is fighting the want to cross that line to stop him. Johan knows this and will do all he can to push Tenma to break that one rule and bring about his perfect suicide. Tenma, however, can't give in. He is someone who has every single logical right, but if he does, to break that killing spree, and Tenma is fighting the want to cross that line to stop him. Johan knows this and will do all he can to push Tenma to break that one rule and bring about his perfect suicide. Tenma, however, can't give in. He is someone who has every single logical right, but if he does, Johan wins. Tenma sees that all life has value, all human life is equal, and life is worth living no matter what you go through. Dr. Tenma, however, didn't go through what Johan did. Could someone who had the childhood like Johan's be different? Could someone who had their humanity stripped from them retain it and fight against the idea that there is no purpose to their existence or anyone else's, combat the monster? The answer is yes. The man who embraced Milos and told him his life had a reason, even if he didn't know it yet. Wolfgang Grimmer. By the way, like the coolest name ever, and arguably the best side character ever. He was raised in Kinderheim 511 as well, and is incapable of truly feeling human sentiments on a deeper level. He is almost constantly smiling, and despite knowing how dark and cruel the world is, he still fights to offer hope and help others feel the genuine happiness he can't. He is self-aware of the fact that he can't truly cry, and only simulate it. The reason his woman left him was because he couldn't mourn when his own son died. When in danger, however, he becomes someone completely different. Sort of like Bruce Banner if he didn't physically transform and just beat the shit out of people with his own hands. His defense mechanism, the Magnificent Steiner, named after the TV show he watched when he was a kid in Kinderheim. Johan has fully embraced being a monster, while Grimmer locks him away, knowing that is the opposite of how a human should live. I delve more into this and Grimmer's character in this video I made, if you want to check it out, but his entire character is direct opposition to Johan's. A character I think is worth learning from and trying to emulate in his kindness and desire to appreciate his humanity, and not those cringe-ass videos telling you how to act like Johan. Please tell me none of you watch those, like for real. Like, please. We know of Johan and what he represents, and how the story provides answers going against Johan. But why is Johan the way he is? That's the million-dollar question. If it wasn't all Kinderheim and he arrived there already mostly stripped of his humanity, why kill his adopted families over and over and tell an orphan that his mother doesn't want him? Why have a sudden change of plans after reading a fairy tale? Why go through the trouble of killing your adopted family, but never your own sister? Monster as a story takes a lot of turns, and these aspects of Johan get lost when you're first going through the story. His origin being one of the biggest turns, the moment where this Satan-like being that is presented in the first half of the story has his humanity exposed, and in retrospect adds more meaning to his actions. Johan and his sister are the product of a eugenics experiment. The father is killed and the mother has Johan dress as Anna to hide their existence. which is how Schuwald recognized Johann and where he was from, since he encountered them while looking for the mother of his own son, since she was friends with Johann's mother. Bonaparte and those in charge of this experiment find the family, however, and she is forced to give one of them up. So she does. Some shenanigans happen and some traumatic shit to the kid, and the mother is gone and the children then run away. They end up with adopted parents who die, guess who killed them, and Anna ends up in one orphanage and Johann goes to Kinderheim. One went east, one went west. So Johann was abandoned by his mother. That's why he told Milos his mother didn't love him and why he feels the way he does. He's projecting. Yes and no, because Johann wasn't the child given up. It was actually Anna. She simply told Johann what happened to her. Johann had simply been abandoned, read the nameless monster tale over and over again while he waited someone to come. Remember, Johann still was raised as if he was Anna, no identity of his own, so he took on not only her experiences in that moment, but also had taken in the tale of the nameless monster, something he felt he could resonate with deeply, having no name and having no real place left to go. So Johann isn't a supernatural being, but a traumatized, love-depraved boy with an identity crisis that wants the rest of the world to feel as meaningless as he felt. Because if he's meaningless, then that's soul-destroying, but if everything is meaningless, that's a little easier to swallow. When he remembers it all after reading the book once again, he wishes to get revenge and wipe his own existence from the face of the earth. But he needs Tenma to kill him to prove Tenma wrong for his perfect death. So Tenma serves as a contrast to Johann's beliefs. Grimmer serves as an opposite answer to the Kinderheim experiments, but what about Johann's childhood? The pain of being abandoned by one's own mother and wandering the world looking for a home and a name. The answer is the monster that went west. his twin sister, Anna Liebert. She was the one that actually went through what Johann took on himself, and just like Johann was an experiment left abandoned in a cold, dark world. But each of them came to a very different conclusion, as Anna was able to move on, and even in the end forgive, accepting that she didn't need a name. Johann and the dynamic with his sister has another layer, as even though Johann throughout most of what he says is shown to be a nihilistic psychopath, which is true, he isn't completely honest, as he does a lot for the sake of Tenma, but more importantly does a lot for his sister, because her and him are the same. This is an important issue I want to address since I notice this to be a problem every time I talk about a clearly evil character. When a story adds human elements or nuances to them, it's there to add a layer of complexity, but to also make us, the reader ourselves, wonder if we are capable of the same thing if the right things go wrong. It's an explanation, not justification for some of their actions. Johann isn't a static antagonist who is fully realized. It comes off that way in the first half of Monster, which is part of the bait and switch. The journey of some characters is realizing their need and letting go of their want, which is what I say damn near every video I analyze a character. But the protagonist usually has a want but grows and realizes his or her need, while the tragic characters do the opposite, or typically antagonists. They recognize their need or never do, but if they do, they don't go for it because they are clinging on to their wants far too much. In the Griffith video, I mentioned how despite all he had done, the irony is he desires the very thing he sacrificed deep down. I think the same is with Johann and his motivation. His desire to prove human existence has no worth is genuine, but he still wishes to protect his sister. In his goal for his perfect suicide, it isn't just to prove Tenma wrong, but to free Anna of his existence and the cause of all their suffering as well. Hence the point to the forehead. Johann caring for his sister and doing things for her adds a piece to the puzzle, but doesn't override the rest, especially when he does things sometimes completely disconnected from his sister, which is just his way of projecting his pain and misery onto others, hence why we see him get very uncomfortable or sentimental when there's a conversation having to do with family, specifically mothers, as we see with Milos and Karl as well. If we leave out what Anna means to Johann, that's where we find a lot of the misunderstandings many may have with the thematic ending of the story. But again, to clarify, Johann is still an evil son of a bitch. From the point he read the fairy tale, the monster that is Johann starts to fall apart, and his humanity, his weaknesses, become exposed. He was somebody with a twisted plan, but a plan nonetheless to protect and free his sister that he forgot along the way after catching a bullet to the dome, and is then saved by Tenma. The more desperate we see he becomes to erase it all and prove the conclusion he came to from his childhood experiences is correct, and so he can die. So at Runheim, the climax of the story, Tenma finally has Johann where he wants him. Tenma has been pushed to his limit and has lost too much. Similar to the ending of 7, he can put this murderer to an end, but that will play right into what he wants. Quote, Dr. Tenma, all lives were equal to you, and so I was revived. But you've noticed by now, haven't you? The only thing all humans are equal in is death. You can see it, the scenery of the doomsday. Anna arrives having realized why Johann did what he did, and tells him that she forgives him. Johann says that some things can never be amended. Dr. Tenma is going to shoot me. Right, Dr. Tenma? However, Tenma doesn't. I find it poetic how this perfect man, quote-unquote, who plans so much and did everything to manipulate, gain favor, and has everything at his disposal to be so many steps ahead, is shot by something completely out of his control. Johann is instead shot by a drunk, and in the ultimate irony, Tenma saves Johann's life once again, and meets their mother, and question is then asked, who is the real monster? Tenma even goes out of his way to tell Johann that his mother did in fact love him, and they had real names. Johann wakes up and asks when the monster came for them. Was his mother trying to protect him or confused him for his sister? And then he collapses again. Tenma leaves the room, and then we see Johann is nowhere to be found. Tenma defeated Johann by not giving in. There are multiple quotes alluding to how a human can become a monster throughout the story, like when Anna speaks to a former hitman, and he says that killing is easy. You just need to forget the taste of sugar. And Grimmer, before it all goes down, he snaps at Bonaparte. Do you understand what it means to destroy the very nucleus of human good and evil? Do you understand what happens when you awaken the monster inside of a human being? People are supposed to think their food is delicious. They're supposed to look forward to the picnics on their day off. They're supposed to think the beer they drink after work tastes especially good. People are supposed to feel misery with their entire souls when their children die. Grimmer, who I said served as an opposing answer to Johann's ideology, in his final moments regains his own humanity, but I think that quote applies to Johann as well. Quote, "The magnificent Steiner became human once again." Johann is a great example of having an antagonist move and push the very plot of a story, and Urasawa's ability to have every character contribute to the central theme of Monster, with so many serving as a parallel and contrast to Johann, it allows the story to all come together beautifully, with an irony to how this mastermind is stopped and defeated. What seems to be the representation of a nihilistic monster, but underneath, there was a boy that wanted an identity and wanted to be loved. Underneath all of it, there was a human trying to protect his sister. He is terrifying because something like Johann can be created, and that part that rejects humanity lies inside each and every person, which is why Tenma couldn't give in. What Grimmer held on to and embraced is what Anna and Tenma gave to Johann to defeat what he represents. They gave him love and kindness. What Johann does after all of this is a mystery. He has been forgiven by his sister, the one he reached out to and cried that day in the hospital, and saved by the man he was convinced would kill him and prove him right. Is he still alive? Not sure. If he is out there, but now has no one to call him by his name. And that's such a shame, because Johann was such a wonderful name. What would a character have to do in order to be the object of an audience's hatred for over 30 years? Would most likely have to be a being of indescribable horror, grotesque in appearance even, or just another European twink. It is tricky talking about Griffith, not because of the... or just another European twink. It is tricky talking about Griffith, not because of the people who defend him, since those are just people trying really hard to be different while ignoring half of what gives the character his identity. But if not, this is like the 47th time I've gone into the character, but I want to make this the video I do on Griffith as a character, and what truly makes him special after all these years. Being hated when you are in the role of antagonist and or villain is ideal. Would rather the audience feel strongly about you in a negative sense than to feel indifferent. The ultimate heel like Triple H. One can make a villain sympathetic, or a mix of both of course, but if you want to make a character the object of an audience's wrath, make them hate who they are, not how they're written. There are other antagonists and villains that have done things to label them irredeemable, or vile if you will, but I would say none make you feel as strongly or as hated as this man. When Griffith is first introduced in the Black Swordsman arc, he is shown to be the object of Guts' quest for revenge, but all there is to him is that and the mystery as to why. At the very early stage in the narrative, there is a detachment with Guts' sentiments and ours in regards to Griffith. The floodgates are closed for the time being, preventing us from feeling the water, if that makes sense. That aspect of being disconnected from the character is an apt description of Griffith's very own dynamic with the Band of the Hawk. None of them are really aware to the fullest extent of who Griffith really is, with only Judo having a good observation, as Judo seems to be really good at reading people. Hell, even choked down his true feelings for Casca, being aware of what she and Guts had. Guts, who from the very start refused to see Griffith in the same exalting way and others did, and Casca, who has seen Griffith in vulnerable states far before Griffith entered the picture. I want to really look at what these characters have to say, and the moments Griffith is not just the White Falcon, the symbol, but if not the man. Because before we can look at the moment that caused us to hate him for as long as we live, we first have to look at the qualities that made us forget the betrayal was even coming. The positive traits to his personality that make him intriguing, admirable, and even likable. The number one thing that is evident in Griffith von Leif Erikson, yes, that's his full name, take my word for it, don't look it up, he is ambitious. And somebody who knows what they want in life and are determined and willing to do what it takes to make it come true is inspiring. You are drawn to that fire and it keeps you warm for a while. Ambition can be a very good thing, as seen with many other characters, but often, as is the case with those characters, they have a downfall. Griffith is ambitious to a fault. Every other interaction and conversation he is a part of is towards his goal of having a kingdom. I've seen this comment a lot about Griffith's goal, and that it being a neutral thing is some sort of justification for his actions. He cannot be held under judgment of evil since his desire is not an evil thing. You see, I would say that's a pretty good point, if it wasn't, terrible. Griffith's ambition for his kingdom, that statement indeed is neutral. In a vacuum, that has no good or evil. But what if I told you I really wanted to win a race, and that would also be neutral? But then you found out that I had cheated in every single form imaginable to win said race, instead of training and doing it the honorable way. My victory is now tainted by my actions. No one who argues the flaw with Griffith has an issue with his goal. The action that leads to the finish line is where the sentiments of disdain come from. His ability to see everything that isn't his goal is beneath him and not of equal importance, even if it's the lives and freedom of others. Be it his enemies, lovers, soldiers, closest friends. Even if his personality can be deduced as self-absorbed, his goal remains a neutral or slightly positive one if you try to spin it that way, but his ambition, which drives him to use any shortcut and cross any moral boundary, makes it an ambition that burns others away and inevitably will turn the very man possessed by it into ash. I do believe the greater good argument could be used for other characters who do negative actions to bring about a positive outcome overall. Griffith cannot fall under that umbrella, as he is a character who commits an ungodly amount of evil to satisfy his own selfish needs and goals, regardless of whether it benefits other people or not. Still, the interactions that paint the picture of an ambitious and driven person are prevalent with the characters he shares no intimacy with. That's just him in general. But the moments we really get to see and get close with Griffith is in his second trait. He is a guilt-ridden and disturbed individual. This is where I want to first point to the scene where Casca sees Griffith bathing himself while trembling after seeing him the night before being with medieval P. Diddy. Here the story pulls us in, making us close to the character by showing us that Griffith is indeed at one point a human being with remorse and feelings, at least this early on. As the symbol of idolization has the curtains pulled back as it was for Casca here, now it is for us the audience. Griffith catches Casca staring at him in concern. Why not join me? It feels nice. Casca goes to run away, and this is where we get vulnerability from who we believe to be unfazed and untouched. Am I dirty? Casca hesitates and then asks Griffith why was he with that man alone. Granted, for a little bit of context real quick, this is in a scene after Guts had saved Casca, and they're in this cave together, and she's opening up to Guts about her frustrations with him and why it's difficult for her that Griffith seems to be so close to Guts, as she's tried to be close to Griffith but always feels like she's never really had that opportunity, explaining to Guts who Griffith really is, because up to this point in the story, we have the great symbol that is Griffith, but here we get the revelation of how he actually is. Going back to the flashback scene, Griffith doesn't respond and she attempts to cope and suggest it's something else, but Griffith admits it's what she truly thinks happened. He says money. An army consumes so much money just being. Men, horses, equipment, provisions. None of it's free, and the Band of the Hawk will grow larger and larger. It has to. For that too, we need a vast amount. War funds. In any case, I seem to appeal to that old man, and I was interested in his fortune. Our interests coincided. Casca disagrees with his actions, saying they would eventually raise enough, but Griffith believes it would take too long, and every battle he loses more troops. Casca wonders if it was because of the boy Griffith expressed somber sentiments over dying earlier. He says no. I thought about it logically. To go into battle and lose hundreds of soldiers or seduce one old man. Which is the lesser risk? Casca, listen. I don't feel at all responsible for my comrades who've lost their lives under my command. I guess they themselves choose to fight. That's just the way I am. But if for their lives, for the sake of the dead, if there's something I can do, that thing is to win. I'll keep winning to fulfill my dream to which they clung, putting their lives on the line. My dream can only be realized by building upon their corpses. It's a blood-smeared dream after all. I have neither regret nor remorse about that. But for hundreds, thousands of lives to hang in the balance and myself alone not to be unclean, what I want won't enter my grasp as easily as that. I think this scene shows the humanity still heavily present in Griffith early on during his campaign. Someone who realizes this isn't a game like when he was playing on the streets, wishing to have a kingdom, but now understands the price to pay in order to accomplish the impossible as fast as possible. Someone who is bothered by the lives lost for his dream and feels disgusted by the actions he takes in general, but he's willing to suffer and endure the pain, slowly killing off those feelings of remorse and separating himself from his humanity if he has to, because what matters most is the goal, the dream. He's going to use the dead as fuel to drive him, and he will climb more corpses if he has to. Still, at this point, it would be inaccurate to describe him as purely evil. That is the nuances to his character. Instead, a man who is willing to get dirty and bathe in blood for his kingdom. There is another word that was emphasized in the dialogue I do want to point out to as well, and that is alone. Griffith, because of his position and actions, is isolated, with no one he can truly be himself around and be simply a human being and not the leader of the Band of the Hawk. As you can even see with the scene, as Casca tries to delve a little deeper into it, once he sees her reaction, he kinda shuts her out, but more on this later. Griffith, as he continues to chase his dream, will have to grow more desensitized to the evil he may have to witness or most likely commit himself, and will have to continue to keep up a facade to serve as the perfect symbol of inspiration to his men, a reality that he will try to ignore but bothers him deep down. Even in future scenes where he should be more cold and more desensitized, he will still ask Guts if his actions are cruel, showing that throughout the Golden Age arc we are seeing a man discarding as much of his humanity as necessary, but not completely wanting to lose it. The third positive trait is his charisma, the thing that allows him to use people with ease and advance his plans, be it with members of the Hawk gaining favor with the king, and if not more importantly, favor with Charlotte, a way to use her and marry his way into a kingdom. Judo gives the most accurate description of Griffith and people's perception of Griffith before the eclipse, after admitting it's Griffith's charisma that attracted the mercenaries that would join the Band of the Hawk. Quote, "How can I put this? Just when you think it looks like he's got some strange wisdom, he seems just like a kid. Just when you think he has a spine-chilling look on his face, he smiles innocently like a baby. Is he a child or an adult?" Quick intermission. Even if it wasn't intentional, that's some crazy-ass foreshadowing. Anyways, back to it. A good guy or a Even if it wasn't intentional, that's some crazy-ass foreshadowing. Anyways, back to it. A good guy or a villain? I don't really know what he is. Guts mentally recalls the duality he noticed with Griffith as well. But something about him is different from us. There are things that simple mercenaries like us only hear about in the absurd drinking tales, things that he would think of, and so they were like nothing. I can't really describe it. It's not just his swordsmanship and his tactics. Ordinary people like us don't understand Griffith. It might take him longer than a lifetime to achieve it, but I guess he must have some kind of conviction. Guts asks, "In what?" And Judo responds, "In everything. It's not whether he's a good guy or a bad guy. It's not whether we really know him or not. Isn't that just how it is when a man gathers other men together?" End quote. Not to lose too much focus in regards to Griffith's charismatic nature and what makes him alluring despite his physical beauty, but I think Griffith still pursues his dream at times with the childlike wonder which manifests itself during the calm moments. Maybe part of Griffith still likes to play around like he did long ago on the streets, and the members of the Hawk are just toys for him. But I would be mistaken not to point out that I do think he also just genuinely is a fun-loving person when he can be, and isn't busy killing or avoiding being killed. He's a mystery in a large part to the Band of the Hawk, but his ambitious goal, his conviction and charisma make him worth following, even if they don't truly understand him, regardless of whether he is good or evil. Quick intermission, this video is actually sponsored by me, or well, more appropriately, my series. For those that aren't aware, I've been working on a series now for a few years. The prototype came out 2 years ago now, and I'm very happy that Chapter 0 was able to drop about a few days before this video's come out. So if you would like to check it out, that would genuinely mean a lot to me. This is something that I hope that I'm able to transition to and explore and get better at, and there is a long way to go. For those that have already checked it out, thank you so much for the love and the support, as well as those of you that take your time to look into it and give your criticisms. Obviously, you know, you can't get pulled in every direction which people recommend you, but still the fact that some of you sit down to read it and give your genuine thoughts, either ways is dope. So yeah, that's just a quick sponsorship. If you check it out, spread the word, that would be awesome. And back to the video. I think at this point in the story,